Hi, guys. I'm Nina,
I'm Jamie.
and we are Bloody Essentials. Jamie, it's so good to see you,
Nina, it's so good to see you too. This is like my favorite time of the week.
right? Look forward to it every week. It's the
I
best.
know. Cool time.
Yeah. Ethan is out this week. He is fine. He is in a undisclosed location. We did not do anything with him yet.
Things
But
cool.
if he plays his cards right, we might let him come back next week.
You'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Don't look into his disappearance.
Nothing suspicious there. Everything's
Yeah.
cool.
It's all fine. Don't worry. He'll be all right as long as he follows the rules.
Yeah.
This week we are kind of honoring Black History Month. We decided to do the Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
And I was curious, so I've never seen this movie. I have seen it on Shutter, like as I was scrolling and everything, and I've always been curious about it. But how did you and Ethan like learn about this movie, or what's your connection to it?
It's kind of the same thing. Like I kept scrolling past it and I obviously like it definitely had Frankenstein vibes written all over it.
Oh yeah.
But I was kind of nervous to click on it or see anything. I'm always worried about new horror movies, you know? Like I'm always like afraid it's not going to be good and I try to steer clear as much as I can until I hear someone talk about it,
I
which is a
know.
really bad mindset I need to get out of because there's so many great horror directors that are coming out and this is one of them. Like it's a really good film and I was surprised. But yeah, this came out June 23rd of last year, just in time for Juneteenth last year. So it's definitely a good pick for Black History Month, I think.
I did too. And I'll just say right off the bat, I was super impressed by this movie, like from the way it was shot, the plot itself, like the storyline itself, I thought was really great. What a great kind of like version of Frankenstein for
Yeah.
today's like kind of modern world. Really loved it, really impressed. Have to check out more by this director. Don't know much about the director, but have to check out more.
Yeah. So the director, I'm just gonna pop down here to my some of my fun facts. The director is uh Bomani J Story. This is his first feature film.
Wow, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And he wrote and directed this film, so this is kind of a big deal that it's on Shudder and available for ready access and everything, so it's really exciting,
Wow, what an impressive debut for somebody. Like
right?
definitely going to be following. Definitely going to be following.
Alright, let's hop right on into this, with the plot points.
Oop, oop.
Alright, so Vicaria, right? Vicaria?
Yeah.
We were given a lesson early on in this film about how to pronounce her name, so I just wanna make sure I'm not doing it the way that her teacher did it.
I think you're correct. If we have it the same way as Miss Bitch said it, I'm
Oh
sorry.
my god, seriously. I do have it written down in my notes, Vicaria, and I refer to her V because it was, I typed so fast when I'm doing these, I was like, "V."
I referred to her as V as well.
Okay. I might use them interchangeably, but yeah. So
See?
Vicaria is our main girl. She's a badass. Let's just say that right off the bat. Like, so much agency. She's great.
And she's got cool style and she's yeah, like you said, so much agency. Like she knows who she is. She's comfortable with herself. She's smart. She's really smart.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of like her knowledge, she's taught herself because this school that she goes to is not fun.
No.
But we start off with some very heavy things right off the bat. V shares with us that her mom was going to school to become a doctor, and she was shot in the head when V was only 8 years old. And we see an image of her mom holding V right before she got shot. Like that alone is enough to drive any kid like batshit bananas, you know? But like she
Uh,
doesn't. It's crazy, like
So much trauma, like, we learned very early on that V's life has really been painted by death. Like, there's been a lot of death around her and
Yeah.
trauma, and like, you kind of have to grow up fast when that happens. And I have to say, like, the special effects were really cool in that moment too, because when you see the mom, you actually see, like, there's like in her, you can see where she's shot in her face, and it's really intense.
Yeah, and it's slow motion too, so it's like there is no happiness in this moment, like, there
No.
no. Like, and then we go straight into, V's brother, Chris. He got mixed up in the local gangs with, Congo. That's his name,
Yeah.
right? Congo? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got mixed in gang violence, and he was gunned down when he was trying to attack another gang or something, so he's dead. And shortly after he dies, her dad starts using drugs to cope.
Yeah. Which is so sad. Like, this movie hits you with a lot of sad in the very beginning. I think it makes you relate to V in a lot of ways and like root for her, I guess. But like, man, just the realness of it all, like, it's very real horror that she's experienced in her life.
Yeah, like we've done a lot, like in the short amount of time we've done the show, we've done fantasy horror, we've done body horror, we've done all kinds of things. This is a real horror. Like this shit happens every day.
Yeah,
And
it does.
this is not an escaping reality type film. It's not, if that's what you're looking for, this is not the
It's
film for
not
you.
it. You
Yeah.
know that right away.
Yeah. I do really like V's monologue here where she says that her dad is showing symptoms of death and death is a disease, which means there must be a cure. That's
I
great.
I love that. That is like pretty much a central like theme and thread throughout the whole movie. That is like the quote that defines it. And I just love the concept of it, and I love her like theory about that. Great. Great
Yeah.
concept to be a backbone of a movie.
Yeah, and V is probably 16, 17. Like
Yeah.
she's very smart. Like this opening scene where she's walking around, all these neighbor kids are like, V, like getting her attention, trying to talk to her. She's like studying her elements table and rattling off elements, and like it's really impressive. Like I wish I had as much intelligence in just my pinky that she has in her entire body. Like it's incredible.
I know, seriously. Like, they call her the mad scientist, which I think is
Yeah.
so cool because it's so definitive of who she is. And like, yeah, she had her reputation precedes her. She's a smart girl. She's doing some sciencey shit for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I love that she's just a positive influence to so many kids in her neighborhood. Like she's teaching Aisha, her best friend's brother and sister, I assume is it's her brother and sister,
Yeah.
Jada and Freeman.
Hmm.
She's teaching them their homework and helping them with their stuff and everything. And it's really cool to see that she's kind of taking them under her wing, and she's telling them, you know, don't take what your teachers say at face value. You know, educate yourself, read as much as you can, you know, and that's a central theme throughout this movie as well. That you know, education is very important. Aisha, V's friend, is giving her brother Malcolm X book, and you
Yeah.
know, it's incredible. Like it's really cool that they're because I mean the education system sucks right now. Let's be real.
Oh my god, does it ever? And then I like, there's such a contrast between like, I love that scene where she's walking through the neighborhood and you see the kids like squirting squirt guns and like all this stuff. And then you're taken to like the gang group again. So,
Yeah,
it's like everything has this, the gang kind of violence is like overseeing like everything that's happening. It's like all
yeah.
present.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, Congo's little headquarters, basically, he's got his group on a hill basically looking out over everybody in the
Yep.
projects, and so he sees everything that's going on, he knows what's going on at all times from his lackeys just watching, like yeah, he's very aware, and, his presence is ever lingering.
Yeah.
We meet Jerome, another boy in the neighborhood. V bumps into him and she learns that he joined Congo's crew. So
Yeah.
that's kind of sad. Like he's probably 8 to 10, maybe, and he's already joined.
And he says to her, "Life is cheap." And that's like, it really struck me because young
Yeah.
people like that do get involved in gang activity. And it's like, just to hear him say life is cheap, this child saying it, you're like, oh man, shit is real.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder like what leads people into going that route because obviously V's brother Chris went that route as well and look where it got him and it's like you would think that all of these young men seeing this like are like, "Oh no, I don't want to be involved in that." But in a gang, it really is like family. They
Yeah.
place a lot of value on encouraging young recruits, making them feel valued and important and cared about. And they're like, We're here for you. We're family." And it's like, as long as you don't step out of line or, you know, get shot by another gang or cops, like
Yeah.
it really is their family, Like it's sad, but it's true.
Totally. And kids are kind of like, perfect targets for that because they're easily manipulated. There's lots of
Yeah.
benefits in using a child for certain types of activities. So yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking to see it. Again, very real horrors in this movie up until this point, and I mean through the whole thing, but very
Yeah,
real kind of life horrors.
for sure. One of the hardest scenes to watch for me was this classroom scene. We see V at school, and at first she's kind of being a typical teenager. She's very well educated. She knows a lot about the subjects already before the teacher even gets a chance. She's kind of co-piloting this
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
She's a little incorrigible, but I mean, what 16, 17-year-old kid isn't? But
I know. And it's science, she's at least she's not
science, it's
getting
her
into
favorite
bad stuff. I
subject. Yeah.
know.
But then this teacher, oh my god, steps way out of line.
It's the worst.
Yeah, she she calls security to get her removed from the classroom just because V is trying to share her ideas about death and that death is a disease just like cancer. Um yeah.
And Teach doesn't approve, and Teach is really disrespectful of her. Like we said earlier, she says her name incorrectly, and then she just says, "You know what? I'm just going to call you Vicky because it's easier." And it's like you're
Which
not even
is so disrespectful.
I know, it's like you're not even going to respect her enough to say her name correctly now that you've been corrected. So that's when she says, "Okay, well, I'll just call you Miss Bitch." And you're like, "Oh," but yeah, security gets called, she gets handcuffed, like it's a whole
She
thing.
gets pulled out of her seat just because she refuses to get up.
Yeah, onto the ground like a
Onto the
like a high
ground, like,
schooler.
yeah, this is a minor, and this security guard is a full-grown adult. He's on top of her, handcuffing her. Like, again, this does happen, like, but it was really hard to watch because I remember being a teenager, and I could not imagine going through that. Like, I don't care how disrespectful she may seem to a teacher, that's unacceptable.
I know, and we're coming to this, but then this conference, Dad basically says, she's the child, like
Yeah.
teach.
Yeah, and it's like, even though her dad is a drug addict and stuff, like, he is a good dad in his own way. Like, he's doing the best he can.
I love the dad character so much. He like makes me want to cry because like
Yeah.
he's been through like a lot of trauma himself. He's lost his partner, he's lost his child, like he's having to raise V all by himself. Like
While
that
working 2 jobs.
yeah, while working 2 jobs, that's hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's like and he's dealing with drug addiction. And we know the reason that he's, turning to drugs is because he wants to escape the reality that he's in to an extent. And I don't blame him for that. Like I understand it.
Yeah.
And he's such a good dad. Like the way that he stands up for her during this conference, I love that scene so much. He basically like pulls up these desks because she doesn't even have chairs for them for this conference setup, which I thought was
Yeah.
so rude and disrespectful, right? But he basically ends it by saying, I'm going to continue to encourage my daughter to think out of the box. And it's
Yeah,
like, yes, thank you. Like, he's not
yeah,
perfect, but he's there for his daughter and he wants his daughter to succeed.
absolutely, absolutely.
I love
And
him.
one of my favorite moments, first off, my jaw dropped to the ground when this teacher was like, "Oh, what's the origin of your last name? It's so
No.
foreign sounding." I'm like, first off, you're a teacher. You're not stupid. You should know the history of this country. A majority of African American people, their last name is not the one that they were meant to have. Those are
Yeah.
usually like their ancestors were more than likely slaves. Those last names were given to them. That is so disrespectful.
So
Like,
disrespectful.
I think V's first name is absolutely gorgeous, and the fact that she just wants to call her Vicky is, ugh. But yeah,
Yeah.
again, hero dad, best dad ever. Well, not best dad ever, but he's
His
like,
heart. His heart
his
is there.
heart's in
He's
the right
good.
place. Yeah, he's like, just so you know, our name is probably came from some German overseer that branded our ancestors when they were slaves. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
like, man, it's like she knew what she was doing to some degree. She's just kind
I think
of
she's trying to just like make them feel small and insignificant.
I
And
do too. Hmm.
whether she whether she even thought before she asked that question, like, she's either ignorant or pure just racist, like, she's
Yeah.
gotta be.
She's
So,
one of those too, for sure. And she definitely wants to make him feel small. I mean, like I said,
yeah,
she didn't even have chairs set up for them at her desk for this
yeah,
conference.
for sure, and I'm sorry, if you need security because you don't like the ideas that a child is speaking in your classroom, that is something you guys can discuss after class, like,
And you should probably take a good look in the mirror and decide if teaching is really for you.
for sure.
Considering, yeah, this should be something that you're able to handle. But
For sure. Like, I know teenagers are not easy. I've had to work with them in the past, but this was completely unacceptable. And I was 100% with V and her dad on this. Like, yeah.
seriously,
All right. So moving on, we learn V stole her brother's body and has been working on him over the years and basically learning more about the human body. We see her like playing with skin and tissue and seeing how it works. And I love the look of the skin. Like it's squishy and like it has the texture of real skin, Like they did a great job with this.
the effects in this movie are really good. Like, I love this woman. She's like pulling guts, and there's like
Yeah.
guts, and they're like you can see the full like pull. I love a good like gut pull, and
Yeah.
it's like gnarly and awesome. And like when she like has the heart, like that's really amazing. And I have to say, like, I love her like the modern Prometheus like book that she has that she's making, it's like it's Frankenstein like cover, there's stitching across it and everything. I want
Yeah.
that. It is so
Right.
cool. I want that prominently displayed.
And it's funny because the modern Prometheus was the little, what is it? The little thing on the original Frankenstein. It's like the
Yeah,
subtitle,
subhead.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it says Vicaria F. So you don't know, we never know her last name. We never find out, but it's hinted that it's a German name, and Frankenstein is a German name. The story has German origins, so that's fun to
That
think.
is that is delightful. I really, really love that. And I love her whole little like science lab that she has too. Like it is so cool, all the different things in that lab, like everything she's constructed, all her tools. It was awesome.
And again, like, this is a kid, like, she's been getting this stuff over time, and it's in an abandoned building that no one goes into, and also, I wanna know how the heck she's keeping this body fresh because I don't recall ever seeing a freezer. Like, it must smell really bad in there.
I was gonna say, how has nobody like alerted the authorities to the wretched smell coming out of this abandoned building in an area that's kind of like known for like some murders and some violence and stuff like that? So it's like That place got to be stinking by now because I didn't see any refrigeration either. She's got multiple bodies. She's
Yeah,
the body snatcher everybody's talking about.
I was about to say Aisha hints later on that many bodies have disappeared over the years, so it's not surprising that Chris's body was never found, and V just doesn't respond to any of that,
I
and
know.
it's really funny.
She's
She's like,
like, anyway.
Yeah." Speaking of Aisha, there's a moment where Freeman, her brother, is calling his sister a bitch. And I love this moment because Aisha is like, when you call your sister a bitch, you're calling me a bitch, you're calling our mother a bitch, you're calling our grandma a bitch. Do you want to do that? And he's like, no. It's like, yeah, more people need to teach their kids that. Like,
I
don't call your sister
know.
a bitch. Don't call anybody a bitch unless they deserve it.
Seriously, I love her by the way. She's a great character. She's a great friend. Like
Yeah.
I love that moment too and she tells her little brother what's up.
Yeah. Aisha is really very well written, well-rounded character, even though she's just a supporting character.
Yeah, she's
And
great.
I love her relationship with her siblings. Like she's teaching her sister the alphabet, and her sister just glaring at her. She's like, A,
Yeah,
B.
I know. Jada's such a little like she's so sassy. I love the little sister too because she's got such attitude.
She's a firecracker. She's
Yeah, she
great.
is adorable.
Another scene that was difficult to watch, Jerome, the kid we met earlier, he gets gunned down by cops. They don't I don't know if they realize or not that he was a little kid, but he was running around with the gang. He happened to get shot, and we see him just laying on the ground. The EMTs are trying to resuscitate him, and it's not successful.
Man, that scene is so intense because, we don't know all the details of what's going on exactly at first, but we know the cops are there and, we hear them saying, you shot a kid, you shot a kid. And, V kind of like, she ends up sitting outside and she's kind of watching this unfold before her. It's really tragic because she has seen this like time and time again now. And she had given him this warning. She had kind of obviously kind of worried about this fate for him. And when they're like defibrillating the kid, there's a moment where his face, like he's looking right at V. And it's like she has this intense moment of like looking him in the eyes as like they're defibrillating him. And right
Yeah.
after we even see her like tossing and turning in bed. I love the scene. She's tossing and turning in bed and she's hearing the sound of the defibrillators and probably the sirens too a little bit, but she's like
Yeah.
reliving that. And yeah, that's a hard scene, very hard scene to watch.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If you've got kids and it's hard to watch anybody die, especially young children, but if this is something that you cannot watch, like, I don't watch this movie because it's hard. It's really hard.
It is. Again, it's very real. It's very real horror and I think it's important to make movies like this, but yeah, it's hard to watch. It's not supposed to be pleasant to watch on some of these moments, but you really like you feel it as like, man, that's something you read about in the news, see it on the news.
Yeah. And horror it's kind of strayed away from this lately, but I remember horror, especially in the 70s, 60s and 70s, it really used to be a critique on society.
Absolutely.
And s- horror is really strayed away from this, like I said, and this is a great film that kind of brings it back to that. And it's not subtle, but
Mhm.
that's okay if you don't want to think too much about it. Like, this isn't Get Out. There's not a lot of symbolism. Like this is like in your face, like this is how it is. So I think it's a great film that really opens some dialogue about some really hard things to talk about.
Agreed. Agreed. I'm glad they made this movie.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting emotional. Okay, let's move on.
I know. Let's move on from that scene because that was intense and real, as we said. Moving on.
Yes. So basically, V gets the idea to use electricity to bring Chris back after watching the EMTs with Jerome. And it works. Big surprise, electricity is the answer.
When in doubt, just
just
electricity is the
el-
answer.
just electrocute the shit out of a dead body.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong indeed? Um, this is where we really see some naive moments from V. Her brother's back, and right away, like, yeah, she's excited. She's glad he's back, but he doesn't even know where he's at. And she's like, I'm going to show you who did this to you, like, who killed you, and what is killing people in our area. And I'm like, this is not a good idea. Like, he's barely been alive 30 seconds, and you're already like, all right, let's fuck shit up. Like,
I know, and it's like we've already had some she's had some little signs that, like, he's not 100% like her brother, like the person that she knew, because when he first like pops back up, he even like grabs her arm at one point, and it's
yeah,
just like she has almost like a big old burn on her arm, and he kind of like goes off and is wandering around. She has to kind of lead him back into the room, so she knows that
yeah,
he is not fully himself anyway.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, I don't know why she thought it was a good idea to do this. I think it was just to get jumpstart the story, but I mean, again, she's 16, 17. She is going to be a little naive and, want to get going on this because she's been waiting a long time for this and it's her moment. So,
And it's
V,
emotional.
it is emotional. Yeah, she hasn't talked to her brother in I don't even know how long. She was young when he died, so it's been a while.
Yeah, and I think she does have, as the movie, title hints at, she does have some anger about what's happened to Chris, about what's going on to her dad,
What's
about what's
continuing to happen with Jerome, like Jerome just
yes.
died. Like,
So I
yeah,
think
you're
she
right.
just feels this sense of like, let's hop right into this. We got stuff to take care of, but yeah, maybe ease him into things a little bit. Like he's just been
Yeah,
regenerated and brought back to life.
yeah,
She's
yeah.
young, rookie
She's
mistake,
a
but
yeah. Whew, what a mistake indeed. Yeah, so V basically takes Chris to where Congo is hiding his stash of cocaine, heroin, whatever it is, we don't really know, but it's drugs and he has it in a car. I don't know why he keeps it in a car, but he does. And she takes the bag out of all this stuff and they're caught red-handed. Curtis, one of Congo's crew members, catches them and Chris attacks Curtis because he thinks that he's gonna like come after them. So Chris attacks him and we don't know what, like, he's not dead right away, but he really fucks him up.
and it is dope. It is so cool because he's a strangler. Okay, Chris is a strangler. And yeah, like a good strangulation. Okay, and his neck is almost like you can see like it's kind of burned and stuff too. And his neck is gnarly. Like that would be scary shit for somebody that size because he's a big dude too, coming
Chris
at
is
you.
huge.
Yeah,
Chris
he's
is
a big
huge.
dude.
Yeah, as most Frankenstein monsters are, he is huge. He could be a football player, like, he's big.
And his
Uh,
face is kind of terrifying because he's been Frankenstein back together.
yeah, yeah, for sure, and, he's got his hood up and everything, you can't obviously, Curtis doesn't recognize him because
Yeah.
they would have recognized him if they had known, but
Yeah.
yeah, obviously, this is not good, like, a gang member is dead, and that's not good. Obviously, they identified Aish or V right away, so yeah, not good.
Yeah, she's kind of screwed now, for sure.
Yeah. So V locks Chris up in her lab. As she's walking away, we see Chris banging on the door, and he puts a significant dent in the door. So it's like that's not going to keep him in there.
Yeah, he's strong.
Yeah, he's a strong boy.
Yeah.
And also, like, I get that you're freaked out by what happened and you know the consequences for this, but like, you're really leaving him alone.
And I mean, I guess easier said than done, but it's almost like you probably want to restrain him somehow, like, like put him back on the thing, where you electrocuted him or whatever, but something, you need something more than a lock.
Or just try to calm him down, talk to him. Like, I know he can't really respond, and I don't he does talk eventually, but, like, try to talk to him. Like, this is your
Something.
this was your brother. Like, we don't know if he's still fully conscious or not or aware of who he used to be, but yeah, like,
Yeah.
I wish that more effort had been done on her part. Like, I know she's freaked out, but, like, she is responsible, and I this is a common thing with the Frankenstein story, like, the doctor is not, doing right by the monster, so
Yeah.
next day, Congo threatens V, he knows she was there, and basically, Curtis is in the hospital, we learn, and, uh, he says, "If anything happens to Curtis, like, you're dead," like, and
Yeah.
he basically blackmails her into working for him. She's now to help cut and package his drugs and prepare them for distribution.
Yeah, she's definitely in a shitty situation with this. She doesn't really have a choice, and it's like I can't think of his dude's name, but
Jamal.
Jamal. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jamal is really not having it. I mean, you see like little glimpses of mercy almost in Kango, but not in Jamal.
Yeah, yeah. Jamal just wants to kill her. Like, he
Yeah.
just wants her dead
Yep.
because of what they did to Curtis. And he wants to find Chris.
And he also just like happens to casually carry around a huge machete with him everywhere,
So
just casually.
ridiculous.
It's
So
huge.
ridiculous. It's a little rusty. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't buy this at his local hardware store, he's been carrying it around. He probably found it somewhere and was like, "This is cool, I'm gonna carry this," like,
Yeah. Not very discreet, but yeah, I wouldn't really want to get on that guy's bad side.
no, absolutely not. And, V goes back to her lab and discovers Chris has escaped, she doesn't know where he is,
Go
and,
figure.
right? Genius idea.
What did we tell you, girl? You got to do something more.
Yeah, yeah. V goes over to Aisha's, and we see Aisha is teaching her brother. She's throwing books at him and is like, um, "You're 2 years younger than Emmett Till was when he died." And I'm like, "Ugh, that's still something that sticks with me, that story. But
Wow.
that really puts it into perspective about Freeman. Like, he's just like, all right, like, I'm gonna go read this book that you gave me and everything. Like, she's really doing a great job trying to help her siblings.
Oh, I know. She's so awesome for that.
Also, Jada, Aisha's little sister, asks Aisha if she can go see her friend Chris after she finishes studying her alphabet. And V is like, "Excuse me? Who's
Yeah,
Chris?"
I know. And she's like, I don't know, whoever, Chris, some kid. And she's like, ah.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence. So
No. Same
we
Chris.
same Chris, yeah. And we don't know where Chris is, but he's obviously been talking to Jada. He moves fast.
He does. He's quick.
Yeah. So Aisha just assumes that Chris is her imaginary friend.
Yeah, not quite.
Yeah, if only. Next we have a really big confrontation between V and Kango. Uh, she basically accuses him of being the reason why her dad got hooked on drugs and blames him for her brother's death. And Kango stands up for himself. He's just like, I didn't hold a gun to your brother's head. He went there willingly that night. He's responsible for his actions. And as for your dad, like, he basically said that her dad came to him begging for something to take the pain away, and that was all he could do.
Yeah, I mean, he basically tells her, I'm what's keeping your family alive,
Yeah, I'm keeping your family together. And it's
which is
like,
tragic and sad and
it's
real
tragic and
again.
sad, but yeah, in his own way, like, he is kind of trying to help. He thinks he's helping.
Yeah,
That's the
again,
problem.
Yeah, again with Kinga, you get a little bit of humanity in him, despite the fact that he's like obviously like this gang boss or whatever. But you get little glimpses of humanity in him. He's an interesting character for that reason. Like he could have
Yeah.
killed V right away too, but he decided to kind of give her a chance as well. And he has been kind of looking out for her dad too. And he realizes that, Chris is gone. It's just him and the dad, or her and the dad. So he's an interesting character. He's got some dimension to him.
Yeah, I think he's very interesting. He's definitely not a villain in this story.
No.
Um, but um, I think because of what happened to Chris, he feels like he does need to look after them. And
Yeah.
that's why he didn't kill V that night and everything. And it really says a lot about Kingo and something that the director said, something that Bomani said about this character is that when writing Kingo, he had to basically write the argument like both people, like, you're right when you're in an argument in your own head, but he had to
Yeah.
write that from both perspectives, and that's really interesting.
Very, very.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because you can see where both of them are coming from. Truly.
For sure. Yeah. And, Kango does want the best for everybody deep down, except what his version of good is it's very different than what V has in mind. So,
Yeah, and humans, things aren't like as things. There's a lot of gray area in things, right? So
yeah.
it's like we don't really know what drove Kango into this world, right? Like we don't really
Yeah.
know what his reason was for being a part of gangs himself. So he could have been brought into this game young, and this is just the way that he's lived his life. Like there's a lot of reasons that he could have came into this world and he's in the place that he's in now. Like there could be very
Yeah.
human reasons for why he's there in the first place.
And he's still very young. Like, he's older than V, but he's not over 30. Like, there's no
He's
way.
young.
You don't get to 30 very often in that world. And him and Jamal are very young. So I think it's interesting to look at the different perspectives in this film and, what made V turn away from drugs versus the reason Kango got into it. Like, they're
Yeah,
probably very similar. Like, he wants to do good and she does too, but their ways to go about going about it are very different, as Aisha
totally.
tells her later. So Kango has V followed. Um, V goes to find Chris, and she finds out that he's been staying at an abandoned apartment that's right next door to Aisha's. And she finds Chris, and so does the gang member that followed her.
Yeah.
That's
We get some
gnarly.
we get some glimpses of that. And I have to say, I thought that scene looked really cool. Like, cause she has this flashlight and I don't know, I like how the lighting was in that scene. It was pretty cool.
They did a really good job of lighting it just right to where it's still dark, but, like, you can clearly see, like, oh,
What's happening.
it's very tense, very creepy, yeah.
It is.
And once again, instead of reassuring her brother and trying to calm him down, she runs away.
Yeah.
Later on that evening, they have a family dinner with Aisha and her family, and V's dad actually shows up too, so that's really heartwarming.
I love the dinner scene. First of all, the food looks amazing. The food
Right?
looked so freaking good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we get one of the best confrontations in the whole film between Aisha and V. Now, there was some slang in here that I wanted to mention because I didn't even know what they meant. Obviously, I'm not in this world. I don't, this is a very different perspective than what we are used to. So I wanted
Yeah.
to mention these. These are two words that Aisha throws out to V. These are two things she accuses her of. PWI is something that she calls her, which is privileged white individual.
Yeah, I
So
had
she
to look
says
it up
that V
too.
is, yeah, she says V is acting like a PWI.
Yep.
So, yeah. And she also accuses her of hotepping, which is basically someone who is loudly and obnoxiously pro-black, but anti-progress.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah,
a
that's,
pretty real conversation that they have.
pretty intense conversation at a family
Yeah,
dinner, yeah,
very.
and serious accusations in the Black community as well.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, what do you make of this conversation? Like, what do you
Oh, you know, I think that like, man, it's really making V kind of think about like her priorities and everything. And I mean, how she's going about things. Cause really she's trying to protect her community and bring some good into her community in her eyes. But
Mhm.
maybe it's like a kind of, voice from someone who loves her who's like kind of it's almost like you have to like kind of think about your priorities and like what's important and how you're getting to them.
For sure, and, um, Aisha makes a great point. She says, um, "I think you're going about this the wrong way, like, I think your intentions are right, but, like, you need to fix the system within before you uh try to bring goodness to the world by, like, curing death, basically."
Yeah.
And it's a real conversation again, like, the world that they live in is very dangerous. It's not a good world to live in,
Right.
and, Aisha wants her to focus on other things that could bring good into the community. She sees her potential, but she thinks it's
Yeah.
misplaced.
Totally. And it's like she's not necessarily aware that she's like Frankenstein Chris and that she's
Right.
going to that extreme. But like what she's saying applies so well, like metaphorically, to like what V is
Sure.
actually doing. So very, very
Definitely.
well done.
For sure. I love her dad in this moment because, he's just like, "V, like, maybe this time you're both right." And the girls are like, "No."
No.
They're both just like, "No, just agree to disagree." But it's it's
uh,
it's really profound that, moment that her dad is just like, you know, "There's 2 sides to every argument, and you each have a different perspective that complements each other. So
totally.
instead of, building a wall, let's work together," kind of. And I think that's very important, especially with everything that's going on right now and in the movie.
Totally. Even their mom, she says to V, death doesn't always have to be so tragic. So like V's
Mm,
that whole dinner scene really gives us a lot of good stuff for V to think about pretty much. And it really shows
yeah.
you the dynamic of them as like an extended family. Like a yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and it's great that, V has people that care about her so deeply, so
Yeah, and then like the moment where the police show up at the door, again, it just like it reiterates like just the kind of world that they're living in and everything. It's a very tense moment
mm,
because they're here having this dinner. There's this knock on the door. It's the police. The dad is basically like, "No, you can't come in," and it's like this very tense moment where he stands his ground and says, we haven't seen anything. We don't know anything." And then they have the whole racket busters like moment, which is this really like kind of sweet moment of relief for all of our characters because things have been intense, there's been some fighting, and the situation is intense. So for
yeah,
everybody to take a turn and say racket busters like in memory of Chris a little bit, that was a really
yeah,
nice like moment for all of them. I like treasured that moment for them, they needed it.
for sure, and I love so much that they can still talk about Chris, and it doesn't have to be sad, and I think that's really
Yes.
important when you're grieving somebody.
Yeah, and their grief for Chris, I mean, man, that's a tough grief because they didn't even get to bury him or have any kind of, closure in that sense because the body got taken. So
Yeah.
it's a rough one, but
Unfortunate yeah, unfortunately, V kinda took that opportunity away from them, which is, again,
yeah,
where her naivety shows a lot.
totally.
We see Chris, he's, confronted by a police officer, and, that's a really hard scene again. The cop asks Chris to identify himself. He's just like, I am Chris. And the cop is like, no, you're the cop killer we've been looking for. You're not Chris. And it's like, oh, and they attack him, try to arrest him. And again, they've got no proof of this. They just make assumptions,
Yep.
as in this world they tend to do, police officers.
Yeah.
And not that all cops are like this, but it's a real thing. Like there are cops like
Yes.
this, and they do make assumptions, and everyone's human. People make mistakes, and unfortunately, this backfires on this particular guy.
Yeah, because Chris like smashes his face to bits pretty much.
Well, don't dehumanize us.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
you hear them and they're saying the monster, he's a monster, and you hear the
yeah,
lights and the sirens and the cops are saying back and forth he's a monster.
yeah,
Yeah. Again, that
and
dehumanization.
yeah, and that really haunts Chris, and we learn that later. So Chris finds his way home, and he's reunited with his dad, and that doesn't go so well either.
Oh man, this is so sad. This whole moment and the way yeah, just the way that goes down is sad. He's a
It is
strangler.
sad. Yeah, he is a strangler, and yeah, so Chris kills his dad. We learn from Jamal that Curtis has died in the hospital. He was Chris's first victim, and now he's ready, all guns blazing, ready to kill V for this crime.
Yeah, and then we have this moment. I was not expecting it when he takes his huge machete and like brings it down into Kango.
Straight through his shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because Kango tries to defend V, and he's like, no, we're not doing that. She's helping us. Like, she's doing more good right now than she would be dead. So it's like Jamal's not having it. He's over Kango's shit, and he's like, I can do better than you can. So I'm just going to do what I want, basically. And yeah, attacks Kango. Um, Chris ends up getting involved, and they get in a fight, Jamal and Chris, and Jamal eats that machete.
And it looked so cool. Like, oh my gosh, the moment where you see Jamal's body there, and like the machete is like, okay, it's like horizontal, like in his face. You do
Yeah.
not get that shot very often. I love a machete going in like sideways like that. Like,
Right?
amazing.
It's beautiful. It's my favorite death in the whole thing.
It's really good.
Because this one actually deserved to get it, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of the other ones are undeserved, so they're hard. But yeah, this one
well,
felt
just
good.
misunderstood. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris kills Kango. Kango is trying to protect V. He tells her to go. And yeah, so Kango dies protecting V.
And I like that Kinko and V end up like kind of having to work together in the end, because
Yeah.
she's like, I need my stuff. I need my stuff to, if she's basically like, I used electricity to bring him back to life. Maybe that's how I need to, get rid of him. So I need this tool. It's here. So, Kanko actually gets one of her tools from the house that Chris is in while she runs to go get some of her other stuff from the lab. So,
Yeah.
we kind of have to work together in the end. So again, he has like that kind of he has like a hero arc for sure in a
One
way.
of the best arcs I've ever seen in horror, honestly. It's really
It's
good.
a good one. Yeah. He does
And
the
I
right thing in
love
the end.
he does. He redeems himself significantly. And B has this moment of recognition of his act, and we see her tie his bandana where he died, basically. And we learned early in the film that that's an act of remembrance, basically, in the gang world, to tie the bandana where he died, basically. And it's interesting because, V is like all anti-gang and everything, but she pays this last act of tribute to Kingo and all that he, stood for, basically. So
Yeah,
she's come full circle too.
totally. She has.
In case it wasn't heartbreaking enough,
I know.
Oh. Um, V runs into Jada, and we learn that Chris killed Jada's entire family, including Aisha, who was pregnant,
With
and
Chris's kid.
with Chris's kid. Yeah. So, not that he knew,
Right.
obviously, but yeah. And V has this great bit of dialogue where she tells Jada that um, Chris hurt everyone because they called him a monster, and he believed it. They made him the monster.
Yeah,
That's very profound, and I think that's very true in a lot of ways for young black men. And
totally.
if you hear something enough, you start to believe it, and I very firmly believe that. And this applies to anybody. It doesn't matter your skin color. If you're called a criminal, if you're called like a less than human, basically, you start to believe that and your confidence takes a toll. And
Totally.
yeah, unfortunately, Chris didn't really have anybody supporting him. So
Oh, oh, Chris.
poor Chris.
I know.
So V puts Chris down, and but she has a realization that uh, she might be able to save Jada's family because they just recently died. They're still fresh, as she calls it.
I love her little like mad scientist like, moment again where she's like, they're fresh. They're fresh. And I'm like, oh, the mad scientist has said it again. She's gonna bring him back.
Which is a very bold decision after everything that she's gone through, but at this point, she has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And so V starts with Aisha. She tries to bring Aisha back, and not only does she bring Aisha back, she also brings back her baby,
Which she named Victor.
which she named Victor, and it's such a great triumphant moment.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
and then we get the sense that she's gonna work on the rest of the family too.
yeah, because Aisha's asking where everybody is, where's she at, and she's like, "Don't worry, everybody will be here soon." So
Yeah.
it's potentially she even brings back her dad, which is really cool, and maybe even Kingo. Fingers crossed.
I
That'd be
like to
cool.
I like to think that she does. You know what I mean? I like to think that she does. And I don't know, they have some, I was like, maybe they have some vigilante justice of some kind. But then I'm like, no, I just think the justice is that they can live a happy life after this, maybe. So I hope she brings them all back and everybody just has a happy life.
Yeah, and I like the whole idea of we don't know, but
I do too.
it's enough to know that Aisha is back and that Chris's unborn child is alive and will hopefully live a normal life.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully that kind of like cycle is kind of closed a bit. That's like the hope I get at the end of this.
Yeah, that it's time to heal.
Yeah.
All right, and that wraps up Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. I got a few fun facts. There wasn't a lot to find, unfortunately. I tried even watching interviews of the actors and the director, and I still had a hard time finding things. So, considering it's
Okay.
a brand new movie, I have very little, so I apologize. But this was filmed primarily in North Carolina, which
Okay.
I found very interesting because it has a very urban feel. Like, not
Yeah.
necessarily like New York or Chicago or anything like that, but it definitely feels like it's a big city, with all the cops and everything.
I was definitely wondering, like, I wonder what city this is. I wonder what city this
Yeah.
is.
'Cause they don't say, but you get the
No,
idea that it's kind of an urban-esque area.
definitely.
There was an interesting credit from Bomani, um, at the end of the film. He put in the credits, "This story is dedicated to my big, big sister and my big little sister, along with all the love to my wonderful mother and father. Thank you, Mary Shelley."
Aww.
Yeah. So, obviously, he's got a great support system behind him, and,
Yes.
he seems to be a fan of horror as well, so that's
I
cool.
would say so.
Yeah. And, again, this is Bomani's very first feature film. He's done some other shorts that, were listed on IMDb. I had never heard of them. I don't know if they're available anywhere, but they sound kind of, they counts they kind of sound like, drama-esque, not really horror, but
Okay.
I definitely wanna check them out because this is
Yeah.
really a good movie, so I'm curious to see what else he's done.
Same. Like, again, what a strong debut. I would love to see his non-horror shorts too.
Yeah, and the budget was between 45,000 and, 50,000,
Wow.
so and he made a little over 100,000 total,
Okay.
so he made it back and a little bit more, um, I think because this went straight to streaming, that it really didn't have much of an opportunity, but, you know, that doesn't mean he's out for the count. So hopefully,
Mm.
he makes some more stuff. And this is a Shutter feature film, so I'd love to see what else he can do.
Same. I really enjoyed this. Like, very well made movie, very different kind of idea. It was unique, but played on like a really like classic kind of horror. I loved this. Yeah.
I did too. I really like when people take a classic tale and they make it their own. And this really, he made it his own. And the characters are all so well rounded, even like the supporting characters like Jada and Freeman and Aisha. Like I know people like all of these people, and like it's incredible the writing that he was able to do. And the cinematography looks great. Like this looks like professional film. You would not believe that this was his first movie.
I know the quality and the cinematography itself, the lighting is really good. Like, it's a lot of times I'll see newer movies and they tend to be on the dark side, like as far as like what you can actually see or not see. A lot of
Seriously, and
movies today are not
yeah.
exposed, like, or underexposed.
And this is a very dark movie. It takes place a lot of times at night, and they really did a great job lighting it where it looks real and looks like it's taking place at night, but it's not so dark you can't see what's going on.
You can actually see.
You can actually see, and that's like a big
Yeah,
thing.
it is kind of
You
important,
will
guys.
Yeah, you will not need to adjust your TV settings to watch this movie.
Yes, exactly.
All right, let's get into the rating of this film. Jamie, what would you give this movie?
Oh man, so I really loved this one. Like I said, I've never seen it before. I've been curious about it ever since I kind of saw it pop up on Shutter. Writing was wonderful. The plot was very different, but also familiar, in a cool way.
Yeah,
I thought the actors did a wonderful job. Like, our leading lady, V, was great. I don't think I've seen her in anything else, but I would like to look her up and try to see if she's been in other stuff. All that being said, this is one that I probably wouldn't revisit as much as some other ones because it is hard to watch. Some of it is hard to
mhm,
watch. So for me, I think I'm gonna give it like a 8, like a solid 8. Really, really good, really well done. I'll definitely watch it again.
for sure. Yeah, I'm probably like a 7 just because this is not one I'm gonna revisit very often because it is very emotional, very dark movie. That does not mean it's not a bad that doesn't mean it's not a good movie. It's a very good movie, but
Yeah,
it's just not one I'm gonna revisit very often, so that's why the lower score. But oh, like it's a great movie. It's very well written, great cinematography, even the music is great.
music's great.
And yeah, and there's not a bad actor in this entire film. Like everybody is on their A game.
Yeah, really great. Like, highly recommend it. Again, like, this is not like a hey, let's have some fun and watch some people get killed kind of horror movie. It's definitely not that, but
No,
really recommend you watching it at least once. Like, very, very well
yeah,
done.
for sure. And I think this would be a great movie to watch with someone that wants to learn more about what's going on in the world right now, wants to be
Yeah.
more educated about everything, and it definitely and I hope I'm sure this is what Bomani was going for. This will open up a dialogue for the future for sure. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
definitely. That's why I think it's like you should check it out. Like, you really should watch it. It's a good perspective to take in.
For sure. And I'm not as familiar with everything that they talked about, but I think it's important to know about. So, yeah, it's definitely at least watch it once. It's a great movie. Next week, we will be doing Bride of Chucky. We're very excited.
Okay, one of my ultimate comfort horror movies, guys. I watch this one all the time. I'm like, I'm kind of sad. I'm gonna watch Bride of Chucky. Or it's like, I don't feel great. I'm gonna watch Bride of Chucky. Or just, hey, it was a day. I'm gonna watch Bride of Chucky.
Right? We've had a couple serious films, so now it's time to get fun. It's time to
Yes.
have some fun.
Yes.
And I love Chucky. It's one of my favorite horror franchises, so this will be a good time.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that next week. But with that, I'm Nina,
I'm Jamie.
and we are Bloody Essentials. We'll be seeing you very soon. Bye.
Bye.